States and earning multiple awards, including a Midwest Regional Emmy. His journalism career includes reporting major stories in Atlanta and Virginia. Well, here's my personal anecdote. I tried doing news broadcasting. It didn't work out too well, but I did it for Hmong TV, and I'll tell you what, when you make a mistake on air, it goes viral, becomes a meme, right? So a couple summers, I have the utmost respect for this gentleman. I was interviewing Senator Tu Xiong at the time, and I was asking about his love life, and instead of saying, "Ngo chak ai to do chak no," right? I said, "Have you found your Ngo ti kai yet?" And it became a meme. So, without further ado.
Sorry, Mike. All right, please welcome to the stage our keynote speaker, Chenue Her.
You know who asked me about my love life more than anyone are first graders. Every time I speak to a class of first graders, they always ask me how many kids I have. They want to see a picture of my wife. I don't have any of that, so. Also, I've never seen a Hmong-speaking cowboy before. Or a one-on-one, man. I've never seen that before. That's awesome. I love that. Well, first and foremost, thank you all so much, Ocho, for having me here tonight to be with all of you. I just want to let you all know that it is such an honor to be here, to be with all the educators in the building, all the supporters, all the allies of our educators, our teachers, because you are such a crucial part of our community, not just the Hmong community, but all of the Twin Cities and in Minnesota. I have so much love and respect for you because, trust me, I understand the level of patience you all have. I was one of those kids that you had to be very patient with when I was a student. So I was the kid that you always had to move to different seats. And no matter where I sat, I made friends with everyone around me. So it was pointless. I never was able to shut the hell up. So thank you. It didn't work, right? Well, thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Chenue Her. I am an anchor at Fox 9 on the Fox 9 Morning News. I moved home 6 months ago today, actually. 6 months ago, I moved back home here after traveling around the country, working in news for the last 12 years. I've been in Oregon, I've been in Virginia Beach, I've been in Atlanta, Georgia, and then most recently, I was in Des Moines. So, aside from that, I am a proud East Sider. I'm from the east side of St. Paul, and I'm also the son of, obviously, Hmong refugees. My 4 siblings and I, we all grew up probably like a lot of you, right? We had 2 parents that worked all the time as much as possible, while I'm the second oldest of the 5, so me and my older sister, we always were babysitting, we were always helping out around the house so that my parents could work on weekends. You guys know what weekends are like? No, Mom, all the time. Like, all the time. We always had to go to those things. You know, we're all Hmong, so I just know that you guys can relate to that. And I just know that not only can you relate to those experiences, I'm probably related to half of this room. I don't know which half. I will probably meet some of you guys after this, and you will say, "Oh, I'm your uncle," or "I'm your aunt," or "We're cousins," something of that nature. And even if we're not related, the other half probably knows my parents. So just if you see my parents, tell them that I did not have a drink tonight, okay? But if you do know my parents, you know the one thing about my parents is they can be very emotional, and they also don't sugarcoat anything. They are very, very straightforward. They are very real. So when I was in high school, and I told them I wanted to go into TV journalism, they were not happy. Oh my God. They were terrified. That's just the honest truth. They were terrified. Why couldn't I have chosen to be, obviously, you all know, a doctor, an accountant, work in IT, honestly, be a teacher. But I chose TV journalism. I was confused why they were not supportive right off the bat. I was confused why they were so terrified, especially because they were actually very local news loyal. They watched the news all the time. They actually raised us on the Fox 9 morning news. We watched it every day before school to get our weather forecasts, to see if school was going to be canceled because of a snow day. They loved, watching Keith Marler every morning, and then in the evenings we also watched the local news because we were poor and it was free, so there was that too. But they always raved, right, about how intelligent, how smart these journalists were, about just how polished they were, how professional they were, how handsome Paul Majors on the other station was in the evenings. So, to me, that was my picture of success really, really, really early on. And that was, I guess, in a sense, my American dream. I was born and raised here, but that was my American dream, right? So, now remember, I just said my parents are emotional and they keep things really real. So, of course, they were terrified. They were not really on board with all of this because it wasn't because they didn't think that I couldn't do it, but it ultimately boiled down to there was no Hmong person on TV, okay? So why would it be me? Would a station ever hire me? Is there a seat for me at the table? Is there a seat for me at the anchor desk? Do I belong in front of a camera? I mean, all of those things were what my parents were thinking about. So it wasn't so much that they were terrified as much as it was them wanting just the best for me, right? But this is where representation is really important. Someone mentioned it earlier. Representation has played a huge, huge, huge crucial role in my life and my career. So in the midst of all of this sort of confusion, I found one Hmong sister who actually worked in the business at the time. She was an anchor in Wisconsin, Bao Bang. Some of you might know her. So I was in high school. I stalked her online. I know it's kind of right. I stalked her online. I found her work email, and I think I was a senior in high school at the time. So I found her work email, and I just shot her an email. I had never met this woman before. We had never talked before. I didn't know anybody that knew her. I just sent her an email, and she responded like right away. She just sent me an email back, which is crazy. And I basically told her, I'm a Hmong kid in the Twin Cities. I want to pursue this. How did you do it? My parents are not really on board with this, and she sent me back a really nice email. And then I showed my parents, and it actually really moved them. And they were still scared, but then comes the glimpse of hope. And if this Hmong sister had not done this, then I don't think that my parents would have had the hope and the motivation to kind of see me through, right? But they were so scared. They had hope. But, if this Hmong sister is doing it, then to them, they felt better about letting me pursue this because they knew that I won't be lost and lonely throughout the career trying to figure it all out on my own. And then along the way, I found Jia Vang, I found Laura Lee, I found Bua Zhang. So truly, Hmong Sisters really paved the way for me to pursue this career and to be where I'm at today. And it was because they sat at the table that gave my parents hope. Now remember, I didn't know any of them personally. I had never met any of these Hmong sisters before. They all just responded to emails and messages I sent them. And it was so moving for us to have that. And it was, purely it was their presence that changed all of this for me. It was purely their presence that inspired my parents to just let me run. As my old boss used to say, just run with scissors. And that's what my parents did. They let me run with scissors. And now that I'm older and I look back, I'm not that old, by the way, so don't get it twisted. I'm not that old. Again, I don't think my parents were ever afraid or scared when it came to their kids, to me, my siblings. I think they were just more so cautious. They're protective. A lot of you guys are probably parents, so you're cautious, you're protective, you express it in different ways. For my parents, it just came out more as fear a little bit. And being, at the time, I couldn't figure out as a kid. It was difficult. And because of the way my parents are, I probably was a nightmare child because I'm loud, combative at times as a child. I always had big ideas, new ideas. So my parents were like, I was kind of difficult. But worst of all, I was really stubborn. I can be a little headstrong. So if you think of like the old school kind of Hmong thinking, right? Think like your parents, your grandparents, your aunts, uncles. These are not necessarily great qualities, okay? Stubborn, loud, obnoxious, probably not great qualities. But early on in my life, I think I learned not to be ashamed of having those qualities. And I learned that early on from someone that really had a pivotal role in my life early on, and then it all kind of came back full circle. So when I think of all of my years in school, I only had one Hmong teacher. Keep in mind I grew up here, so I only had one Hmong teacher. It was Miss Lee in first grade at Phelan Lake Elementary. Some of you guys know her? Yeah, okay, I see. Yeah. So, Miss Lee was my first grade teacher at Phelan Lake Elementary. I always remembered Miss Lee, not because she was my only Hmong teacher, but there was something else. There was something about Miss Lee that I think throughout the years, I always kind of find myself coming back being like, I wonder if she's still teaching. Like, I wonder what she's up to. I wonder if she's still at Phelan Lake Elementary. This is, again, I've been moving around for the last 12 years, so keep that in mind. And it wasn't just me though. Like my parents would, from time to time, kind of bring her up or kind of bring up that, remember that one time we went to conferences and Miss Lee said you wouldn't shut the hell up? Yeah, that was, it was that. But about 2 years ago, one of my best friends who I grew up with, I go to church with, and we're very close, she asked me to go speak to her class. So I pulled up to the school, and it hit me. This is my old school, but with a different name now. So when she texted me, this is where I teach, and I'd love you to come speak to my class. I just said, okay. It hit me, just a different name, but this is my school. So I went to her first grade class, I believe, and we're talking, and I told her, oh my God, I went to school here. I went to first grade here. My teacher was Miss Lee. So then she runs out of the room. She runs out of the room and leaves me with all these kids. I'm not really good with kids, so she leaves me with all these little kids who are just staring at me. And she comes back and she drags into the room. Guess who? Miss Lee. This was 2 years ago. So yes, after all these years, Miss Lee was still teaching there. My only Hmong teacher I've ever had is still at that school that is now Tsuki Elementary, a Hmong immersion school on the east side. I saw her when I first moved back 6 months ago, and she pulled out an old picture from when I was in her class. It's so weird, isn't it? Can't believe I fit in those little chairs and all that back then. But it just reminded me though, when I looked at that picture, it reminded me of just how rambunctious and talkative I was. And she said, oh, you always volunteered to pass out papers and lead the line. And I guess I was bossy. I guess I was obnoxious, basically. But you know what? The thing was, she never punished me for it. She never disciplined me for it. She never made me feel like I did anything wrong. It just was who I was. She let me run with scissors, figuratively, not in her class, running with scissors. Figuratively, she let me run with scissors. But I think it was maybe that sense of freedom and acceptance and having that space that struck me really early. And I think that's why I remembered her all these years, because that wasn't always my experience being who I was, who I am. So, as a journalist, I talk to all different people all the time throughout my career, from people from different backgrounds, socioeconomic statuses. I talk to people when they're in their darkest times, when they've lost loved ones. I talk to people when they are in the highest absolute moments in their lives. But the best and the most powerful stories that I've ever had the pleasure of telling in my career are the stories where the people I talk to and interview, where the person is just free to simply just be themselves, be seen, be heard, because I believe that's when people thrive. Think about yourself, think about your kids. You are in your best form when you can just be you. And those kids in your classes, they each have something. Okay, they each have something, especially if you teach like the young ones. They might not be able to identify it or voice it, at those young ages, but those kids, they each have something. I've over the last couple of years, I've done a lot of volunteering at schools and stuff. Each kid has something, and they're different. So imagine if you fed that, if you maximize that, if you let them just be that, and you fed it. They thrive. They go on and they break barriers. They turn around and they pay it forward. One kid pays it forward to a classroom. Now each person pays it forward. It spreads. It spreads like wildfire, and it's going to spread to the next generation. It's going to multiply so fast. So I visited Tsuchi Elementary a couple months ago, and I think it was really eye-opening for me, because that was really the first time in my career that I have visited a school, actually with Hmong kids. And it just wasn't a school with Hmong kids, it was a Hmong immersion school. So I visited a few months ago during a career fair, and so many kids told me, "Oh, you look like my brother," or "You look like my dad," "You look like my uncle." One kid said, "Do you make the same money as my dad?" And I was like, "Buddy, am I that old? Like, I can have a kid your age?" But one kid said, "Oh my gosh, a TV star looks like my brother." It's so nice, because I'm not a TV star, but I'll take it. Thanks, kid. But the thing was, it's their looks, it's their excitement, it's their tone, it's their body language that being a TV journalist now doesn't seem like this crazy foreign idea. Because when I was their age, I would never have thought that this career would be possible. But it takes them meeting one person that looks like their dad or their uncle or their brother to say, "Hey, this is what I do as a job." And now it's like, to them, it's achievable, it's real, it's realistic. And like now it's just not an idea that they're going to be afraid of, because they saw someone that looks like someone that they know. Now, with all of that, I do have to be real. This journalism career path, this walk has not been easy. I have lost job offers because some stations have requested that I use a different name for a stage name, because Chenue Her was just not natural or neutral or normal enough. I've often been in a room where I was the only AAPI person, and if I pitch AAPI related stories, there's no interest. I've been accused of being a DEI hire in my face multiple times, although my journalism awards will beg to differ with that. But this is the thing. You can't be swayed and intimidated and moved when your roots are planted very firmly. So I know that outside the walls of a newsroom, I have an amazing family. I have incredible mentors who have been with me from the very beginning. I have very good close friends. I have all the Hmong community from all over the country that communicate with me all the time, that support me and that encourage me, that know what Chenue Her is all about. As a journalist, it is our job, it is our duty, it is our obligation to seek the truth and tell the truth. So I couldn't live with myself if I had to lie to myself every day, going by a different stage name, going by, a persona that just wasn't me. Because again, my foundation started very young, just being who I am. So one time in Iowa, I wore just a traditional Hmong shirt to anchor a 2-hour newscast in November during Hmong New Year week. And we got emails from viewers who did not like it, okay? Some of my colleagues were, they were whispering in the office because they thought I was gonna get in trouble, right? So then my boss, I work early mornings, so my boss doesn't come until later. So my boss comes in and he comes up to me at my desk. He's a loud white guy from Texas, wears cowboy boots and drives a pickup truck. Don't worry, he can't speak Hmong though. He comes up laughing. He comes to my desk and he said, "Boy, you are all the way through. You are you all the way through, and it gets people talking. Stay Hmong because apparently people are paying attention."
Amazing.
I thought the conversation was going to go totally different, but here he is, just a middle-aged guy from the South who had probably never heard of a Hmong person before until he met me, and he just let me do it. And I think in that moment I realized that giving that part of me up was just never going to be worth it, no matter what. And then when I was taking this job at Fox 9, my news director had asked me, before we made the deal official, my news director had asked me, "Who is Chenue?" And I said, "The most basic East Side Hmong guy who just loves journalism? I don't know." And he said, "Well, then that's who I want to anchor at Fox 9. Then I asked jokingly, "So can I keep my name?" And he said, "Well, there's only one Chenue, and that's who the team needs." And I think that's when I knew, I think this is gonna work out. Like this is gonna work out just fine. And I've been extremely happy ever since, because there's nothing like walking into an environment where you can just be you. The foundation I build on now is one that was laid by my parents and my teachers during those very formative years of my life. Those were the years where my parents and teachers saw me day to day more than anyone. If it weren't for educators like you in this room today, I don't really know where I'd be. I most likely would not be a TV journalist like I dreamed I would be. Maybe I would be a boring doctor somewhere. I don't know. I'm just kidding. I'm not that smart or dedicated. No, not at all. But I don't have to tell you guys this, because educators I'll just be straight with you. Educators are underpaid and underappreciated. The career can feel so thankless at times. You literally shape the future hundreds and thousands of minds in our world, and sometimes you don't even get one thank you, which you deserve daily, by the way. But I can say tonight, while I'm up here, that I'm thankful to have parents who are proud of me and the things that I've accomplished over the last 12 years of doing what I get to do every day. And that means a lot because, remember, they were terrified of me pursuing this career. And also, they're Hmong parents. Sometimes they're afraid to even just share their feelings. So, but I can say my parents are proud of me, and it feels really good to say that. my reporting, my anchoring has won several journalism awards. My advocacy for representation in journalism was recognized with a national award. I've spoken all over the country about things like this, about being rooted in who we are, about pursuing the things that you want to pursue as who you are, and letting people know. And I've spoken a couple years ago at Fresno State too. I remember telling the kids, being Hmong is a superpower. So it's up to you if you want to use it or not. And when I took my first anchor job in Des Moines 3.5 years ago, I was the first Hmong man to rise to the anchor desk in the United States in this business. And today my parents can turn on their favorite news every morning that they watch for the last 20 plus years. And they can say that they see their kid anchoring at that station, anchoring that specific show even, and today is the first Hmong news anchor at Fox 9, their favorite station. 12 years ago, when I was still working in Oregon, I had just taken that job. My grandparents lived in Sacramento. So 12 years ago, when I took that job, my grandpa saw my very first news story that I did in Oregon. It was so bad. I don't even go back and watch my old stuff. It's so cringe. It's so bad. Oh, like, who let me cut my hair like that? Who let me wear that outfit? I don't know. It was really bad. But my grandpa watched it on a little iPad, and he was emotional because he was so proud, and he said, it's my blood. This is my grandchild, that is speaking truth so freely. And no one is going to take your life for it. Even at his older age, he understood the power in journalism. He understood why freedom of the press was important. And like our lovely MC mentioned earlier, he understood why storytelling is impactful. We're Hmong. Storytelling is in our DNA. I get to tell stories for a living, and it's just natural. My grandpa understood that. He was so excited, and he said at the time that he couldn't wait for me to one day have the chair or lutong. He said he was excited for one day to see me zhou lutong. So he always said that. So that's what he called the anchor desk. He called it lutong, or the chair. And so he saw that as just one of the greatest honors that you could have in this career, not because it was, not because he saw it as something that was, flashy or any sort of fame that came with it, but he believed in what that position signified. So you get to sit in the chair, and you get to speak truth, and you get to say truth, and you get to speak to your community. Now, that was 12 years ago. So my grandpa passed away in 2020. 1 year before I got the chair in Des Moines. I was still a reporter in Atlanta at the time, and I did not get to the anchor desk before my grandpa passed away. And I think for a few years after that, I kind of beat myself up over it because, why couldn't I have done this faster? Why couldn't I have fast-tracked this somehow? Why couldn't I have made this happen while he was alive? And also, he was suffering from pretty bad dementia, Alzheimer's, and so, for the last couple years of his life, I didn't get to necessarily communicate with him in a way that, he could even understand or remember. But now I know that he would be so proud today to know that his wish, that came true. And not only did it come true, but he always wanted me to come back home to be with my family. And he would be so proud that I'm back home with my family, and I get the chair during our people's 50th year celebration. Yeah, I think about it all the time. I wish he could be like in this room, or I wish that he could pull it up on an iPad and look at it. And him and my mom, so he's my mom's dad, they were very close. And so, I remember telling my mom, like, oh man, asking my mom, I just wonder like what he would say or what he would think. And my mom was like, my grandpa was a man of very few words, but she was like, you know how he would feel. I'm working my dream career now. I'm anchoring my parents' favorite news, fulfilling my grandpa's wish, and I had the permission to just be myself from such a young age, because a first grade teacher didn't see me as an obnoxious, badass kid, but saw a kid being his best self. Maybe not in a traditional sense, but saw me being my best self. Teachers, educators, administrators, your work can change history, okay? Especially because, as we've seen, our Hmong kids are so capable. They are so bright. They are so ambitious. They're innovators. They are leaders. They are creators. They are athletes. They have so much talent and so much gifts, so many gifts to share with the world. I mean, your work can change history. It creates innovators, leaders, leaders who no longer wait until proud Hmong people and proud Hmong kids, they no longer have to wait until they are given a seat at the table. They command the seat at the table, and if others are hell-bent on them not sitting at the table, they say, screw you, and they go build their own table. And then they invite others to come sit with them. Because as we saw with Side for Side, Lou said, I'm gonna go start my own school. And look what he's been able to build. Because I remember growing up in the 90s, breakdancing was not it, right? And Lou has done something incredible. And that is just a great example of he went and built his own table, and he did it. And that's what you all are going to help create through all the kids that you are blessed to teach today. And your work makes dreams come true. And I can say, I'm Chenue Her, and I'm an anchor at Fox 9, because one teacher made a huge difference in my life and made my dream come true. No matter how obnoxious I was, that teacher made a huge difference. So before you all leave tonight, before I leave tonight, I just want to tell all the educators in this room tonight, all the teachers, administrators, all the counselors, if you work in the world of education, I just want to say, watch out for all you do. Thank you.